Welcome to the very first episode of the Common Sense Briefing. This show is for anyone who feels like the news today explains what happened, but rarely explains why people disagree about it. If you watch CNN or CNBC and don't quite understand how people on the right see the same stories so differently, this show is for you. And if you lean right, watch Fox News, or listen to conservative radio and can't understand how the left reaches its conclusions, this show is for you too. Today we're breaking down the U.S. military operation in Venezuela. One event, two very different narratives, and a lot at stake. What the left is being told. If you mainly watch Fox News, listen to conservative radio, or follow right-leaning media, this is how the story is being presented on outlets like CNN, MSNBC, and NBC News. On the left, the U.S. military operation in Venezuela is being framed first and foremost as a dangerous precedent. The focus is not on Nicolás Maduro as a person, but on the action itself. Viewers are being told that the United States used military force inside a sovereign country without congressional approval or international authorization. There is heavy emphasis on international law, the U.S. Constitution, and the idea that if powerful countries start seizing foreign leaders, global rules begin to break down. Comparisons are often made to past U.S. interventions that were described as limited at the start but later expanded into long conflicts. Another major theme is motivation. Left-leaning coverage raises skepticism about whether this was really about law enforcement and drugs, or whether it was driven by oil, power, or domestic political pressure. The concern being communicated is that this kind of action could make the world less stable, not safer. That's the lens the left is largely seeing this through. What the right is being told. If you primarily watch CNN, read the New York Times, or follow left-leaning media, this is how the U.S. operation in Venezuela is being explained on outlets like Fox News, Newsmax, and conservative talk radio. On the right, the capture of Nicolás Maduro is not framed as a military invasion or regime change, but as a law enforcement action carried out at scale. The core argument is straightforward. The United States did not attack a legitimate leader, it arrested an indicted fugitive. Viewers are reminded that Maduro had been charged by the U.S. Department of Justice years earlier on narcotics and terrorism-related offenses, and that his government was accused of facilitating large-scale drug trafficking into the United States. National security is central to this framing. Conservative coverage emphasizes the idea that Venezuela, under Maduro, had become a hostile foothold for foreign powers such as Russia, China, and Iran. This is often tied to a revived interpretation of the Monroe Doctrine, with the argument that the United States has both the right and responsibility to prevent adversarial influence in the Western Hemisphere. Another major theme is results. Right-leaning media highlights the speed and precision of the operation, noting that it was completed quickly, without American combat casualties, and led to the release of U.S. citizens previously detained in Venezuela. Scenes of public celebration among Venezuelan expatriates are cited as evidence that the action was welcomed by many who opposed Maduro's rule. Finally, the right is being told that objections based on international law are misplaced. From this perspective, legal arguments are seen as protecting a corrupt regime rather than addressing the real-world harms of drug trafficking, regional instability, and weakened deterrence. The takeaway is that the U.S. acted decisively, enforced its laws, and restored credibility. That is the framework shaping the right's reaction. The common sense conclusion. At the end of the day, this story isn't really about left versus right. It's about how the same event can be framed in completely different ways, and how most of us only ever see one version. The person who watches different news than you is not your enemy. They're your neighbor, your coworker, your family member. They love this country too. They're just being told a different story, emphasized through a different lens, with different fears and priorities highlighted. That doesn't mean one side is evil or the other side is blind. It means modern media rewards certainty, not curiosity, and outrage travels faster than nuance. Common sense doesn't require you to abandon your beliefs or meet in the middle on everything. It simply asks you to slow down, ask better questions, and recognize that no single outlet, left or right, gives you the full picture. Understanding how the other side is being informed doesn't weaken your position. It makes you harder to manipulate, and in a time when division is profitable, that matters. If this kind of breakdown is useful to you, If you value understanding over outrage, take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the Common Sense Briefing. It helps the channel grow and tells the algorithm there's still an audience for calm, thoughtful discussion. We're not here to tell you what to think. We're just asking you to slow down, look past the spin, and use common sense.